welcome to Laser Armageddon 2.0. So this build is awesome because we're combining the amazingness that is lasers right now within the game with the already established amazingness that is fire damage over time within the game with all the most recent buffs that we received in one of the most recent patches. So basically what we're going to be doing is doing something very similar to what we did before on the bot side, because the 1.0 version of this was against the bots, and now we're actually going to bring this 2.0 version to the bug front to see how it actually fares against the bugs. So what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be breaking down every element of this build by category. We're going to go over all the various stats that you need to know that are important and applicable, and then lastly we're going to go over some general tips that will help you with this build versus all the bug variants. Anyways, let's talk about it. Starting out with our crowd control option, we have the gas grenade. So the gas grenade deals caustic damage, and this is basically broken down into two elements. It's going to deal a dot damage of 25 damage per second, and it's also going to confuse the enemies, making them unable to move. They're going to kind of run around in circles, hit each other, and various things like that. This does work up to charger level enemies, so it's going to work with anything like brute commanders, spewer enemies, stalkers, whatever you can think of. Is going to work against them. Does not work against Bile Titans, just to make that more abundantly clear. The gas cloud actually lingers around for about 15 seconds and can go outwards of 20 meters, which is a pretty long range as it disperses, so it's very, very powerful overall. And then the gas effect is going to continue to apply as the enemies are within the cloud. However, if they choose to leave the cloud, it's going to wear off in about 2.9 seconds or so, or wherever they actually got the dot damage. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So the gas grenade is absolutely perfect for breaches, meaning that if you're going to have a breach situation, reinforcements are called in, you throw one gas grenade, and usually they are going to linger around during the full duration of that breach, or pretty much the full duration, confusing the hell out of the bugs that are coming out of there, which makes breaches so much easier. You can also use this to head off patrols as well. So if you see an enemy patrol, just throw a gas grenade toward them, and that's going to confuse them so you can take them out easier. And then lastly, it's going to be great for making a quick escape. So if you have a bunch of bugs on you, like the predator bugs, for example, you're going to be able to throw this at your feet, and you can out heal the damage that this thing causes, because it's not going to do very much damage to us as long as we're healing through it. And it's going to confuse the bugs, making you available to be able to turn around and shoot things. So overall, it's going to be great for a wide variety of situations for us. And then also, because the gas grenade has a demo force of 30, it's going to be able to destroy bug holes and some other objectives as well. But it's definitely going to be able to destroy those bug holes, which we're going to need it for, because we don't have any other tools within the build to be able to do that for us. Starting off with the damage section, we're going to have a plethora of damage options, and the first one we're going to talk about is the double-edged sickle. Before we get into the breakdown for the double-edged sickle, weapon customization does affect it, although it is just scoping options, which scopes in this game actually only affect ergonomics. So by default, the 2x2 bread dot is the main option. That's going to give you a 62 ergonomics. If you are to throw on any of the holographics or the red dot options, it's going to increase your ergonomics by 3 up to 65. If you use the iron sights, that's actually going to give you a +8 ergonomics, bringing it up to 70. And then lastly, if you use the 4x combat scope, that's going to drop your ergonomics to 59, bringing it down by 3. So really, if I had to tell you which one to choose, I would just choose the iron sights, especially if you only aim from third person. If you do need a sighting option, one of the holographics or red dots is going to work as well. So this is one of the truest unlimited weapons within the game, because you can continue to shoot this thing, and as long as you can out heal the passive damage over time you're going to take, you can stay alive and keep shooting this thing forever. It's actually quite insane, because you can just keep healing yourself or having somebody heal you with a stim pistol. It's quite wild. But the main thing that's interesting about this weapon is that the more it overheats, the more damage it deals, and the higher the penetration gets, up to a certain point. But that point is very, very powerful overall. But again, the caveat is that you take damage over time. So how the double-edged sickle works is it deals 55 base damage at light pen. That's pretty much where it starts off. As it heats up to the varying percentages, it's going to get upwards of 70 damage per second at heavy pen when you hit that overheat mark, which is absolutely ridiculous. So if you're watching the heat bar, the sweet spot for this thing is going to be between 51% and 95%, because that means you're still going to be doing 70 damage per second at medium pen, and then when you get to that upper echelons above 91%, you're going to be doing 70 damage at heavy pen. So that's kind of where you want to live, so that way you're not reaching that part where you're going to catch on fire, but you're also sticking within that damage range where this weapon is going to be the most effective. In order to make the double-edged sickle work to its maximum potential, we do have to run 2 elements to make it actually survivable, so that way we're not being killed by the damage over time effects. So the passive we're going to have to run is the heavy inflammable passive. This is going to give us a 75% reduction to fire damage, and just basically what's going to happen with this situation is going to make us take significantly less damage as this weapon is building up heat. And when we add the vitality booster on top of that, we're going to take 0 damage up until the point where we catch on fire. And when we catch on fire, we're going to take much less damage overall. So that's kind of why this weapon ends up working really well, is because you're able to heat it up without any consequences. Whereas if you don't run this particular setup with the heavy version of the Inflammable Armor passive and the vitality booster more specifically, you're going to start taking passive damage over time, and it's pretty annoying because against the bugs you don't want to be taking that because you're going to be getting hit a lot anyways, and you're going to blow through stims. So it's not impossible to run this weapon without the heavy armor passive, but again, it makes it so much easier, especially when you pair that vitality booster with it. Next up in the damage category for us is going to be the laser cannon. So the laser cannon has received a massive buff because of the most recent changes to fire damage over time, which we're going to go over in just a moment. So basically what we're going to be doing is to maximize the potential of the DES, we need something to hot swap to that is equally as powerful. And the best thing about the laser cannon is it operates really well, because basically after the DES gets to a certain heating element, we can swap to the laser cannon and continue outputting damage over time. So the way the laser cannon deals damage is it deals 350 damage per second at heavy penetration. And the best part about this is that prolonged damage with the laser is actually going to catch enemies on fire, which is really powerful. And the cool thing is that this is basically an unlimited weapon, very similar to the double-edged sickle, except unlike the double-edged sickle is that when you reach that overheat element, it will need a heat sink swap, which you shouldn't need to do very often, but if you need to push it to the limit, you do have extra heat sinks at your disposal. So since the beam is heavy penetration, that means you can damage a lot of the beefier units, which we're going to get into when we break down the gameplay, but essentially you can damage chargers and bile titans with this thing, which is really powerful. So those damage and fire damage over time that I've been speaking about a couple times now is that instead of fire damage just being a flat number for all enemies, now the bigger the target, meaning the more elite units, are going to take more damage from fire damage over time. It's going to take a little longer for them to catch on fire, but that fire damage they do take is going to be more significant. So if you're using the laser cannon and you set a bile titan or a charger on fire, they're going to take much more damage when compared to something like a hunter or something like that. And I think it does actually do more damage against the stalkers as well, from what I understand. So that's why lasers have become even more powerful overall, because not only do they deal consistent damage per second, but they also deal a fire damage over time effect, which is actually stronger depending on the size of the unit. So to bring in some more laser goodness, we're going to be bringing in the guard dog laser as well. So the guard dog laser is basically another unlimited laser, and this is actually a true unlimited laser because this thing can pretty much shoot indefinitely as long as there's enemies within the vicinity, and it chooses to shoot them because sometimes it won't, but for the most part it shoots non-stop even when your teammates are nearby. So that's something to keep in mind. So basically between us switching between the DES and the laser cannon, we're going to have this guard dog laser shooting constantly, which is going to be a ridiculous amount of damage over time. And the way the guard dog deals damage is that the damage it deals is somewhere between the scythe and the dagger. I really couldn't find an exact number, but that's going to deal that kind of damage at light pen. So it's not ridiculously powerful, but at the same time, just because it does shoot consistently, and as you're also pairing that with your double edge and with your laser cannon, you're going to constantly have damage coming out. And the cool thing is that when you're running away, it's going to keep shooting, and basically it's just passive damage over time when you're doing nothing. And the best part of that too is that because it is a laser and it does do prolonged laser fire, it will catch enemies on fire as well, operating very similarly to the laser cannon. So it's going to be absolute beast when you pair this with the laser cannon and the double-edged sickle. So lastly, for the damage section, I'm going to be giving you the choice between the orbital laser or the orbital napalm. Both of these fulfill the role that we're trying to do with this build. So the orbital laser is the Mac Daddy of all lasers. It's this massive laser out of the sky that's going to deal 600 damage per second at AP6, and which means it's going to be able to destroy not only every enemy on the map, but it's going to be able to destroy a lot of objectives. This is great for assaulting mega nests and things like that, which we'll get into in a little bit. But the cooldown of this is going to be 256 seconds with all the ship upgrades, but the limiting factor of the laser that makes it quite frustrating is that you only get 3 uses of this thing, and then you can no longer use it for the rest of the dive. So for some of the longer missions, it makes it a little bit more difficult, which is why I am suggesting the orbital napalm as well, because this fulfills the same role. Basically, we're trying to maximize lasers and damage over time fire effect. So if you want to maybe swap in the orbital napalm instead, you can do that as well. Essentially, this is the big Mac Daddy fire barrage. So this is going to deal a 50-meter radius of huge amounts of fire everywhere. So the cooldown of this is going to be 205 seconds with all the upgrades, and you can use this as many times as you can hit that cooldown. So that's the great thing about it, is that it's not limited in uses like the laser. And then again, because it does have some demo force, you can actually destroy bug holes, so it's decent for assaulting the various nests. But because of the way the barrage is working, you're not always going to hit those bug holes. So either way you go, you're not going to really be disappointed, but we're going to go over a little bit more as to which situations I feel like either one is better. Lastly, for our anti-tank section, we're going to be bringing in two different options, and the first one is going to be the Ultimatum. So this went through quite a few different changes recently. It no longer hits like a precision strike. It actually hits more like a light precision strike. It's still going to do a lot of damage, and it's actually a lot more powerful in a lot of ways than it was before. So essentially now it deals 3,000 total direct damage, and 2,000 of that now is explosive at AP6. So it's going to be able to do a lot of damage against crowds of enemies more, which is great. So rather than it just destroying that elite unit you're hitting, it's also going to destroy that elite unit and then some, because it's going to be able to actually still destroy a lot of things like chargers in one hit, which is very nice. Also, the demo force was dropped to 40, which means it's going to be pretty limited on the objectives it can destroy, but on the bug front, it can still destroy spore towers, it can still destroy streaker towers, which is very nice. Another main thing that the Ultimatum can do is it can actually destroy the Bile Titan spawners that are in the Mega Nest as well still, so that's very good as well. So I know a lot of you are curious if you haven't had a chance to use this on the bug front since the changes. Essentially, it's going to two-shot Bile Titans. Now it's never going to one-shot, which is a little bit disappointing, but again, since we are running some other options, we're going to be able to use one of these and something else to be able to destroy them, which is very nice. But it will again still destroy impalers and chargers with one shot as well, and then again it's going to be great at horde clearing. And then lastly, we're going to be bringing in the rocket Sentry. So this deals 525 direct damage at AP5, which means it's going to be great for killing anything on the bug front. The best part about this is that it only has a 128-second cooldown with all the upgrades, which means you're going to have this back a lot for being able to not only deal with the elite units, but also help you clear out enemies as well if you're in one of those defensive type missions where you need to hold down an area, like on Capture the Flag or something like that. So overall, the rocket Sentry is very, very powerful for that. The main reason why I like the rocket Sentry so much and why I feel like it's perfect for this build is that it has a great overall ammo economy, and it has a really long lock-on range, so you can kind of throw this away from you or set it up a little bit further away from areas you're going to be attacking, and it's going to be able to give you good support from a distance away from the enemies, killing them very quickly. It's also going to be able to be great for helping you deal with the elite units, like if you're shooting your laser at a Bile Titan or you're shooting Ultimatum shots. Pair that with the rocket Sentry and these things are going to die very quickly. So overall, the rocket Sentry is seriously one of my favorite tools within the game, and it's going to be an absolute beast in this build when you pair it with our other options. All right, so now to give you some general tips and general ideas on how to play this build when you're in the field. So the whole idea around this build is pushing these unlimited weapons to the brink, meaning that we want to maximize them as much as possible, and then hot swapping to the next one and keeping constant DPS outputting at all times. So just to give you an example, when you're using the double-edged sickle, you're going to push this until the point where you're going to start catching on fire, and then you're going to swap over to the laser cannon and push that until it overheats, and then just keep doing that over and over again. And all that time, you're going to be having the guard dog laser continuing to output random DPS all over the place, whether it be in other areas you're not looking or whether it be the target that you're shooting at. So it's going to be an absolute beast for being able to clear lots of bugs all at once. Another thing with the laser cannon that I don't see a lot of people doing, and is actually one of the better use cases for the laser cannon, is that it's actually very good against chargers and Bile Titans. Alone, of course, it's going to take a little bit longer because it's not got the greatest penetration level, but at the same time, it can deal quite a bit of damage if you focus an area. For example, if you're fighting a charger, if you shoot their butt or a leg, it's going to kill them relatively quickly. It's going to take off that plating, and then you're going to be able to shoot their little fleshy areas and kill them quickly. In the instance where you shoot the butt area, it's actually going to kill it pretty quickly, even though it is a little bit fleshier of an area. It's very similar to the Bile Titans. You can shoot their little butt area and take off their butt after a period of time, or you can actually just shoot them in the face, and it's actually going to kill them very quickly. And if you pair this with things like the rocket Sentry or the Ultimatum, you're going to be taking out elites very quickly and not really expending as many resources because you are using a different combination of things. The double-edged sickle, if you bring it up to that maximum heat as well, because it does the heavy penetration, can also deal the same kind of damage as the laser cannon. So you got a couple of different options here for being able to deal with anti-tank situations outside of just using your rocket Sentry and Ultimatum. So for the Ultimatum, as I mentioned in the breakdown section, so it still can one-shot chargers and impalers. Now you do need to actually direct impact, but the explosion will do a lot more damage to these than before. So essentially, if you don't hit them, it will still weaken them quite a bit, a lot of times taking off plating, and you can shoot them with a laser or the double edge or have the rocket Sentry finish them off. So there is that. However, if you do hit a charger in terms of any of the other chargers outside the impalers, you will one-shot them at any area. With the impalers, you need to wait for them to burrow their head for the best chance to one-shot them if you hit them right in the little fleshy area. However, I have killed them sometimes one-shot with like, even if they weren't burrowed in the ground, if I damaged them with something else. So the good thing is that you still can one-shot chargers pretty easily with the Ultimatum, which is very nice. When it comes to the Battle Titans, once again, I just wanted to mention it. You don't want to always shoot them with 2 because that's kind of a waste of Ultimatum resources, especially since we're not running things to bring back Ultimatum shots very easily. We're just so reliant on supplies. So basically what you want to do is you want to shoot them with 1 Ultimatum, and then hopefully that takes off some plating so you can actually hit those fleshy areas with the laser options, or you can just shoot them in the face with the laser cannon as well, or you can just have your rocket sentry assist in that situation as well. So basically you're trying to conserve Ultimatum shots where you can and use your other options to be able to help deal damage to those elite units as well. As for the gas grenades, I wanted to highlight a couple things here. So these are just absolutely critical for breach control. So breaches can get out of control really fast if you're not careful, especially if you're in a grouping setting, because there's so many people around, and breaches seem to happen a lot more often with more inexperienced players. So you need to be more mindful of that. And if you throw 1 gas grenade, this can basically neutralize any breach, which is very nice. So it's just critical that you always have some gas grenades on hand, and you try to pace yourself when you're using them. Try to find moments where you don't have to use them as much. Maybe take a couple extra hits or something like that. Don't waste your gas grenades because they are limited, and they're just going to be so critical for breach control because they're going to linger around for basically the duration of that breach, which is very nice. Again, because we are limited on things to plug up bug holes, we only have the gas grenades. So what I would suggest is that you save your resupplies where possible, because I know if you're playing with random, sometimes they can get called in randomly, but try to save your resupplies for when you're assaulting those nests, so that way you can come back and get some more gas grenades to be able to help close up the bug holes as well. So again, you're pretty limited on terms of crowd control with this build, but you're going to be outputting so much damage and killing things so quickly that it's not really going to matter too much. Again, it's just more about being mindful of when you're using these grenades, which is important. And then we have one more important question to answer, which is when do we use the orbital laser and when do we use the napalm barrage, and how do I decide? So this is how I decide, and you don't have to do this, but if you want to just run it one or the other at all times, that's fine with you, but this is how I do it. So in the longer missions, meaning things like the nuke missions or things like the geological surveys or something like that, I'm more times than not going to run the napalm barrage because I don't want to hold on to my orbital lasers and trying to figure out when to use them. That could be quite a bit daunting at times, and sometimes I may use it when I actually need it later. So I'd rather just have the napalm barrage so that way I have it quite a lot. When I'm going on missions like blitz missions or even capture the flag missions, I may swap in the orbital laser a little bit because blitz missions are great to be able to destroy bug holes very quickly with the laser, and then also with the capture the flag missions, you know where the enemies are coming from when you're actually doing the flag cap, so you can actually use the laser at any given time during that as well. And there's typically on the bug side 3 flag caps, so a laser's good for clearing out enemies in a pinch. So those are 2 situations where I typically like that. And also in the eradicates, if you're using the eradicates, I do like to use the laser as well. So really it doesn't matter at the end of the day. You can kind of just pick whichever one you want, but personally that's how I do it. Longer missions, napalm barrage, and capture the flag blitz missions, I may swap in the laser when I need to. So that's really how I like to do it. Alrighty, so that's the full Laser Armageddon 2.0 build. Let me know what you guys think about this build down in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe if you want more content similar to this, and lastly, let me know what build you've been running against these bugs now that we're back onto the bug front facing them. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.